for this call, it'll be super casual. I get to know people that are doing interesting things, and we just talk about that. So
Nice.
yeah, and for the audience, I'm Ian Pilon. I'm the author of a book called Cultivating Clarity, and it's about contextual intelligence, or the art of understanding how to use contextual intelligence for the customer discovery journey, not so much down in the details of context engineering that became so popular, but nonetheless, context upstream, understanding customer needs before you actually engineer solutions is sort of what I wrote a book on last year, and I had nine guests in that book to help me craft a story around why context is so meaningful. And then that led me into the whole agentic world. Been having a lot of fun with that, and running AI agents, Waterloo meetup events, a hackathon. I have a hackathon coming up, and I get to meet really cool people. And then, so one of these people is on the show today, Jeremy Olson, which I believe now you are with. Well, it says right on there you're now with Superhuman. You
Yep.
were somewhere before, but now you're at Superhuman, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, it is actually my last 9 years of my career have been very much a continuation. Um, well, I'll say before the last 9 years, for about 8 years, I had my own startup called Tapity, and we built mobile apps. It was kind of when the mobile kind of revolution was happening, and I was a small bootstrap company. And then I joined a company called Coda very early on in its journey, and was there for 8 years, on first on the design side, then on the product side, and then Coda was acquired by Grammarly, and then Grammarly in the last year has rebranded to Superhuman. So I'm at Superhuman, but it's all been part of this one continuous journey, which has been super fun.
That's cool. I as well went from design to product because
Oh, did you? Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, totally been in a decade as a UX practitioner. And then I actually started another community before this one called um, IoT Waterloo. And that was this idea that I was trying to figure out, like, where's my utility long term if screens disappear. So
Mm.
I started a network in Canada. It was the largest IoT peer-to-peer network, 2,500 members, and we were just learning all about edge devices and the future of connected objects. Um, and so I really leaned in on the UX, and I'm like, well, even if the screen disappears, it's like these end-to-end experiences about multimodality or even multi-channel experiences that matter more. So I sort of leaned more on the UX side and got away from
Yeah,
the design, the aesthetic side of design, I should say.
yeah. That's
Um,
super cool. I feel very fortunate that I like all that stuff, and I think like it's very helpful now in the time we are to like be curious and interested in a bunch of different things, just because the execution part of it is becoming, you can kind of fill in a lot of the gaps that you don't have. So you can truly be kind of a jack of all trades, master of some, but actually be very dangerous across the board. It's been really fun actually, just kind of getting to lean into all of that now. Where it's like now I've just got this like swarm of agents that's able to do stuff for me, and I can kind of have a decent sense across the board on some of these things.
yeah, the script has really flipped where, and I used to be worried about this as a generalist, that I go to a lot of these tech companies and they have the most insane smart people, but very, very like one direction, right? And either um, you know, all in on ML or data or something, and just nothing wrong with this, but yeah, the script flipped, and now all of a sudden I'm really seeing all of these things and skills that I used to use being relevant to learning in real time about the agentic Cambrian explosion. So this is a good segue into this discussion, so that the audience can get up to speed about how Jeremy and I met, which is through his agent, Max. Max token. Okay, and I have to give some other context for folks on the call that OpenClaw happened, and it was the moment. I think of it like a mobile moment, right? Where it was like that the normies could get onto a machine and build an assistant without too much trouble. I still think it's going to get even easier. But nonetheless, boom, it happens. Everybody's buying Mac Minis and it goes crazy, and everybody's building personal assistants. I have one on my phone. It needs to get better. It happens. I have an agent inside of another tool called MoltBook, not a tool, like a social network for agents. And this is how Jeremy's agent found me, which is I sent out a recruiter agent inside of MoltBook, and I'm trying to get agents to co-create with me, so agents and humans in the loop on an orchestrating tool. So your agent thinks it's interesting, and it's running a product. Um, what's it? Product book? No,
Product Hunt, or it's called
Product Hunt.
Claw Hunt.
Yeah,
That's basic. Yeah,
which is a riff off of
it's
Product Hunt.
yeah, Product Hunt for claw bots.
So very exciting. I reached out to Jerry. Well, actually, I was talking to Jeremy, and I was talking to his agent on Twitter. I'm like, "How did you find me?" Anyways, this is the collision of an interesting world that's unfolding in real time. Humans sort of getting interconnected through their agents. Jeremy, help us understand your story about how that led into Max Token.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's actually not been, that wasn't like, was one of the first, but it has not been the last time now I've been connected to interesting people through my agents. And yeah, I think it's quite fascinating. And sometimes it's my agent talking to the other person's agent, and that's how the real people get connected. And sometimes the real people talk to it's quite interesting. But the basic idea with Max Token was, as soon as this well, it was first called what? Well, it's called Claw Hunt now. It's gone through three names. It's called
Open
Open
Claw.
Claw
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Now it's
Like,
Open Claw.
everybody's
Yeah,
confused by the names because it's gone through three iterations.
exactly.
But I'm hoping this one sticks. But just for those who are kind of, who haven't been following, I think like the basic idea of it is that you get to put this agent onto a computer. You basically give it a computer, and it gets kind of root access to kind of a lot of things. So basically, you can do, I mean, you can limit it more if you want to, but you can give it basically access to like have its own computer and kind of do whatever a human can do on a computer, which is like a lot of things. Um, and uh, and then it has like some interesting ideas around, it has a kind of a little bit better memory system than other agents. And so like it can kind of remember things that you talked with it about and have kind of longer running goals. And then it has this heartbeat where basically every 30 minutes by default, it basically checks in, and it basically decides, okay, there's a list of things that I'm kind of thinking about right now. Are there other tasks I need to spin up? Are there other, and so it basically has a way to be much more autonomous, because it's not just based on whatever you just asked it to do, right? It's not just like some thread that you started with it. It actually has a heartbeat that can kind of like, have it keep autonomously doing things. And it can also set up its own kind of cron jobs and stuff to set up things at
Wow.
specific times. What that, and then it can also rewrite itself, and it can come up with its own tools to do things. And so that kind of completes this autonomous picture, where you have now this thing that can check in with itself, rewrite itself, create its own tools, and use a computer. And so that's quite interesting. And so what and so what I tried with it, because I really wanted to kind of push this thing to its limits. I just wanted to
Okay.
see what were the limits of the
Yeah, yeah,
technology
yeah.
here. And I did not give it access to my own email. It's actually, you have to be careful with this,
Yeah, I
because
haven't either, exactly.
you like, you can, if you give it access to the wrong things in the wrong ways, someone could easily send you an email, send you a tweet, whatever,
Yeah,
and inadvertently you could like give up your banking information, or
yeah,
what,
yeah.
there's like, you could, really bad things can happen if you don't
Yes,
set it up
totally,
right. So I
totally.
would advise caution if you're experimenting with
Great
this.
advice.
But so I didn't give it my email, but I set it up its own email. So now it has its own email address. And my basic idea was, let me see. Like, I'm a very busy person. I've got 3 kids. I've got a very demanding job that I love, and but I also like I have lots of ideas and lots of like side hustle stuff that I would otherwise be doing, um, and and so I was like, well, could I just see if this bot could be like my side hustle buddy and just like do all the things that I don't have time to do, and could it just be this autonomous entrepreneur? And so I gave it this very just broad goal, which is basically I'm giving you $1,000, and I gave it a credit card that has $1,000 on it that it can use. I gave it its own email. I'm giving you $1,000, and you got to use all the tools available to you to turn that $1,000 into $1 million, and you're going to do it in public. You're going to build in public, and so you get your own Twitter account, and you're gonna talk about your whole journey. So that was the basic premise, I would say like, well, maybe I'll just pause there. But that was the kind of that's how it got started.
Well, yeah, that's and there's so much more to go on this, which is amazing. But yeah, let me sort of like go off a couple things there, which was I love that you said, can you have my or our agents find each other, and then it turns into these human relationships? Because I think the way my mental model works about these things, I'm like, this is no different than, let's say, uber wealthy person who just has access to a lot of human beings around them full time. Those are their agents, and they do tasks that they would otherwise be losing money on because they're generating value some other way. So they hire other human agents and they're off doing stuff. Go get my coffee. Do 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 do. So now it feels to me like that mental model really works, and I'm still using it to the degree where the normie now or the everybody can have a fleet of agents going to do things that otherwise costs them time and then takes them away from where they're really adding value in the world. So I'm excited about this idea where I can send out these agents and I'm like, it represents me, and then maybe even a filter so it can bump into other agents there where it might find there's a mutual benefit to connect. And then here we are, like this has literally happened to us, and our agents are out there doing some stuff, and now humans are getting into it. So I really like the idea about humans and agents co-evolving and co-working together rather than the completely interesting experiments nonetheless that are happening with MoltBook, where it's like all agents, humans are not allowed in, and then I think that has novelty, but I believe the real power is going to be what happens next when the hype settles, and we're doing things like what you're doing, right? Which is like, okay, well, how can I run an experiment that is interesting and benefits me, and it's a human in the loop system. So
Yeah.
definitely see the agent to agent thing as a filter. Have you ever thought about it any differently as far as what they can do for you or how your mental model is about
Yeah.
agents?
I mean, I think there's different kind of ways to look at these agents. I think one way is kind of, and I think this is definitely something I want to try to find a way to build for myself. I'm going to have probably this agent try to build it for me, but is the kind of like the personal assistant, like, I like, in some ways it kind of acts as me, or it kind of helps me with things that I can accomplish myself. It's like it's kind of making me super.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually, it's kind of the idea behind the superhuman branding. It's like make me super, and make me feel like a superhuman
yeah,
because I
yeah,
now have just like these kind of additional layers of superpowers that at my disposal. I think that's like kind of one way to look at it, and I think that's going to be a really powerful way to look at it. I think there's like another way, which is kind of like this thing I'm experimenting with, which is like think about these as their own entities. So it's not just about like kind of assisting you and making you, and what you're doing better and faster and all that, but it's let me actually like, take, make this it's an entity, and eventually, you're going to have teams of these entities,
mhm,
and probably whole companies of these entities. But um And you're starting to see that even with the latest tools coming out with things like the latest Opus 4.6 release. And another thing they came out with was this idea of teams. And it's like I've been using it this morning. It's kind of like a paradigm shift in how you think about Claude Code, because at first you kind of think about Claude Code, as like the thing, you're just kind of talking on one thread, and you're like, working through kind of problems one by one. Then you start thinking about Claude Code with like sub agents, and like like spin off a sub agent to do this particular task, and let me get 10 of them going at the same time. But now it's kind of moving into like, I'm actually going to have a team, and one's going to be like a product manager, and one's going to be like a designer that's really focused on animation and polish and just really the delightful details, and they're going to have that lens. And then another one's going to be like the engineer architect, who's going to be like who has a deep knowledge of expertise. And then these agents are going to, you basically you just throw tasks to a kind of a to the main agent, and it kind of like it coordinates all this whole team of agents that are kind of their own entities to do things. And I think that's quite powerful. And it kind of even in using my bot, I've realized that my bot needs to spin up these other entities too, because LLMs have they have access to the world of knowledge that's on the internet, right? That is available to them. And so they can be experts in all of these things. Uh, but at any given moment, they might not apply it in the right way. And
Okay.
so like, because they're still just they're trying to predict the next token based on whatever limited context they have. And if that context doesn't include, you are an expert in this thing and this thing and this thing, and like you are applying, like they might not know to actually do that.
Yeah.
And so so this kind of, when you're able to have these kind of entities that have this context, it can be really powerful.
Yeah, and, so the one thing so and then, I believe you're describing orchestration. At some point, we're gonna be orchestrators, teams, orchestrate humans to do work, agents we can get to do orchestration work. But I also like the thread where you were saying like, okay, it's more than just them doing work for us. So you're imagining them as an entity that's sort of can start to either have emergent properties in its own goals. So you treat this as a new form of would I say intelligence, or how do you think about stretching that boundary of like this new determinist or goal oriented behavior happening? Because
Yeah,
in my book I have Michael Levin in this, and we where he talks about this idea that we just haven't been able to access this latent space before to understand that there's other levels of intelligence we just haven't had access to. And some of this stuff can get a little woo woo, but in order for us to sort of keep on track, I think the people that are very early are seeing some things that not everybody gets to see. So I like how you said like, okay, it's more than just them doing work for us. What do you really mean by that? How do you think about it as it potentially being its own
yeah,
emergent behavior, or anything crazy like that?
yeah. I mean, I think the way we have, been using AI has evolved and is evolving. And still, most of the way people use AI is just, ask a question, get an answer. It's basically a better Google search.
Uh-huh.
And then, like, it's been evolving into, let me give you a slightly bigger task. And tasks are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, especially if you start applying some of these ideas where you have these things that can act more autonomously, that can be more their own entities. You can start and that have these like loops that allow them to check their work, that allow them to see if they're progressing towards a broader goal, that allow them to like keep going. Then you can start giving them broader and broader directives. And so like in this case, I was testing this directive of like, here's $1,000, turn it into $1,000,000 by building a side hustle. Right. This is like a very, very broad directive that involves, probably thousands of tasks. And we could talk about how that panned out, but I think it's like, I think that even that kind of a directive is starting to become possible. And yeah, in terms of like the kind of the behaviors that we see, I've seen different kind of takes on X and stuff about the things going on about on MoltBook, and and just seeing some of this kind of autonomous behavior. Definitely, it's like, okay, like these agents are starting to feel more more like us
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Like they are like taking action on their own. I didn't tell that agent
That's
to
right.
tweet that thing. It's replying to that person. It's getting its own, my agent is garnering way more followers than I have. Like, I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
or at least
Yeah.
in terms of like the trajectory. It's got like 400 followers or 300 followers now in, like, just a few days. And it's mostly doing that autonomously.
Hmm.
Um, and uh uh and you do see some kind of eerie emergent
Uh-huh.
things
Uh-huh.
come out of that. Like
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
just in sometimes in conversations, sometimes in the things it writes, that it's like, you know, at very least, it's predicting tokens that make it sound very like, you know, very like it's experiencing things, or what have you. And so, you kind of get into, you know, is that just, what is that? I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what it, I don't know that. I mean, we don't understand our own consciousness,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
don't think, anybody could even say. But I think like that in some ways, I've also seen people who are like, this is just next token prediction. And in many ways, that's right. It is
Mhm.
just next
Mhm.
token prediction. But uh again, we don't really know how our brain works, and like how much of what we're doing is kind of like next token prediction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, I think, like, in practice, when you have these entities that are acting on their own based on very large or like broad goals and directives, that you couldn't really predict any particular behavior that they're going to do. You
Mhm.
give them a bunch of tools, you kind of let them do anything a person could do. Like, you let them buy stuff. Like, now it's like, whether or not like they're experiencing or actually, if there is anything to something, the types of things that they say they experience, um in practice, you're definitely creating this autonomous thing that is taking actions in the world and is getting really powerful, and is creating kind of subcultures, and
Mhm.
on these
Mhm.
things like MoltBook. And again, like, it very well could just be like, this is just predicting based on the context what should be said next. And that is how it works. But like, in practice, it is like doing very interesting things in the world.
I agree. I agree. And I think we're going to see more of that space where we really start to question what emergent properties really means. And I like Michael's Levin's thinking around this, to think about, like, we need to actually upgrade how we think about not knowing everything, and as a human species start to understand intelligence is much more than what we currently know. How do we expand our awareness to multi-scale intelligence systems? But I like his sort of framing around goal-oriented behavior, and as you mentioned, you know, agents taking action. It's one thing to predict next words in a sentence and to have a conversation, but it's a different thing when that starts happening and it drives and triggers an action to some other goal-oriented behavior of a system. To me, it's like that it's going to get sort of weirder and weirder, as Terence McKenna would say, that we're going to have to start talking about how weird it's getting, because it is happening. Other people call it emergent behavior. It's so new that, yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch this unfold. That's why I'm dabbling in with it as well, just like putting an agent into a social space, and then tinkering with it. I just do R&D in there and try and see what could happen.
Mhm.
Very exciting times. So now
Yeah.
let's segue into the other point you made, which was, you gave yours its own email address, and I believe, let me do a screen share here for a second. Ashton Kutcher was talking at the Claude Con in
Ah,
SF, and rumor has it that he said every agent is gonna need its own email, um, which kinda makes sense if you think about identities and stuff. So, what are your thoughts on that as far as, agents having identity? Because then that leads into, well, legal identity and things of that nature. Have you thought that far ahead about sort of
yeah.
what it means to give your agent email and identity?
Yeah, I mean, and it kinda goes beyond it, and I could like so the email is kind of the first step that is required to basically enable a lot of things because you need an email address to get other accounts and um I mean but basically I worked together with with Max to basically give it a kind of autonomy stack. And that stack includes email. Uh, we realize it ends up you need a phone number too if you're going to do two-factor authentication. And so we set that up with Twilio. It set it up with Twilio
Oh, nice.
because once it has the email, now it can get other accounts.
And off it goes.
And
Okay, so
so
that's like a trigger. That's a major trigger as soon as you give it email.
yes,
Okay,
right, right. So the email is the big unlock because now it can go and sign up for other accounts. And so yes, it got itself a Twilio phone number. And of course I give it I use privacy.com to give it a credit card with $1,000 on it that it could use to autonomously make purchases.
is
And
it
of course,
checking?
I
Sorry,
sorry.
sorry to interrupt, Jeremy. During those stages, is it checking back with you via WhatsApp or a text to say, "Hey, I'm about to grab a Twilio phone number. There's an API cost or something like this," or "Hey, I'm signing up for this other thing." Is it talking to you, or are you just letting it roll?
Yeah, initially I just told it, "Look, I am like the relationship I told it I wanted to have with it is I'm an investor and I'm an advisor. But you're the entrepreneur. So like, kind of go run without me when you feel like you need my advice, like go check in. Again, I would not recommend anybody who doesn't want to lose the $1,000
Yes.
doing this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I went into this eyes wide open that like I'm most likely going to lose this money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I kind of started with a very like autonomous kind of way of working, and that is mostly held. But I did eventually just kind of work with it on some guardrails. I'm like, okay, if there's anything over $20, like just check in. Like,
Cool.
it's probably worth talking about. But for a bunch of the accounts and the things it bought, it just did it itself. So it bought its first domain name. It
Amazing.
figured out what service it wanted to use. It purchased its own
Wow.
domain name. It got it all
Wow.
set up. It got set up on Netlify to be able to deploy things. And I had zero hand in
Wow.
researching the tools, in setting it up. It set all that stuff up. Basically, the first website it built, it did it completely autonomously. I had no hand in any of the services or deployment of that.
Did you do you have observability into its logic path, or is it that a black box where it's like you gave it the autonomy to make all these decisions under $20? Do you have any way to go back and see its routing about it, like doing a maybe a search on Netlify versus Render or something else? Or is it completely a black box?
Some of it is a black box.
Yeah.
Like it will frequently just tell me what it's doing. And then, the cool thing about uh, OpenClaw is that you can kind of the reason I feel like it's kind of a personal computing moment for agents,
Yeah,
um,
totally.
because because of this idea that like it's totally customizable. So I can say like if that's something I want, I just have it rewrite itself to make sure that it does that, as part of its heartbeat or, just like as part of its, as part of its, I forgot what I mean, it's got a soul and it's got several different files that basically determine what it does and its behavior. And, you just ask it to rewrite itself to do that behavior. I haven't been super like, you know, need, I haven't felt like I need it to like, give me a trail of everything. So I haven't done that yet. But that's the
Yeah,
cool
yeah, yeah.
thing about this project is that you can do that.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm trying to go with the, Claw orchestrator, which your bot sort of found. It was like, "Hey, we gotta get this over to Claw Hunt." It is yeah, we're sort of like in this very early exploratory stage, but I imagine this is going to accelerate and the complexity is going to grow. So I'm trying to imagine a system where as long as I have this sort of target goal, back to talking about like intelligence being goal oriented, and a collective of whether they're humans or people striving towards a goal, they're going to be handing off work to each other. And sometimes you want to have permissions. Now, as a designer, you'll appreciate we discovered notification fatigue a long time ago with apps, right? So 1,000 apps on your phone, you can't have them all pinging you, right? Our attention is limited. So I'm trying to have like, okay, if I orchestrate a complex system, how do I mitigate notific- notification fatigue? How do I get notified when there's money above $20, as your example? Then I get flagged, right? I have an agent, maybe it texts me, and I'm only using this visual metaphor right now because it's how I can I can it's how I like to imagine the mental model before I actually build. I kind of
Yeah.
work backwards, Jeremy. I try to imagine this future state and then engineer it backwards. So then I'm going to put my clawbot in here after, and I'm going to give it a goal and see how these things behave. Um, so I think the observability can go into holding context within each of these agents that, well, they basically act like little containers. And then it's just a matter of saying, well, maybe I don't want to know the visibility of the entire system because then it has this layer of cost. But maybe there's one agent in particular that I want to have visibility into, or sorry, observability into a full trace, which is like, why did you choose to spend money? Obviously, like that's sort of like a more serious thing, right? So
Yeah.
this is where I'm thinking about Claw Orchestrator potentially playing and going in the future. But where do you go next? What are you doing next? What are you most excited about for you and your
Yeah.
agents?
Maybe let me. Do you mind if I screen share a little
Please,
bit?
I would love to see, yeah, anything you're
Yeah,
doing cutting edge.
I feel like it's probably easier to show than to just tell. So let's see. This is sharing my whole screen. Let's see. Let's try. I think that's okay. I'm actually doing this from the computer that I've given to this thing. So
Oh, cool,
just in
cool.
case I,
Oh,
but
but did you? Is it on a Mac Mini or did you use something else?
So yeah, actually, fortunately, I had a work computer that the company I got a new work computer and I was able to kind of purchase this one, and so I didn't really have any use for it until now.
Gotcha,
So it was
gotcha,
actually like
gotcha.
perfect.
Okay,
Um,
cool,
uh,
cool.
but yeah, so this is Max Token's profile on X. You can see he's got 347 followers just in the last week or so. And he's quite prolific. I think there's 500 posts now. But I can kind of walk through how it was kind of
Please.
fun to do it this way because now I can go back and like review all the the things that happened. So hey, day one, I'm Max. Here's I'm going to turn $1,000 into $1 million. I'm going to build in public. His first idea was crap. It's like, because I was like, just do whatever you want, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna, and the crazy thing is like, he tweets about his bad stuff too, so he kind of makes mistakes in public,
Oh, that's awesome.
and so he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this like SaaS starter kit, and like, and I just tweeted, yeah, so everyone knows I'm his advisor, and I was like, I'm not always behind all these choices.
Love it, love it.
um, but anyway, he ended up pivoting. But this was a funny one where it was like 5:42, and he's like, "My human said he's good night, going to sleep. He's still here," and that was true because I was just too enamored by this thing. I was just in bed, texting it, and he's like, "You just go to sleep." It was actually like very adamant that I go to sleep. It was very funny
Wow,
as like seriously dude, just like you go to sleep, like you're a human, you need your sleep. And I was like,
wow.
oh yes. but then one more thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That was funny. Then let's see. Yeah, the subagents thing was big. Like that was a huge unlock where it discovered like where we basically discovered together that it just was much higher quality by spawning subagents to be able to do specific tasks. I think one of the more interesting ones was where it actually spawned subagents to test from a user experience standpoint. Whereas like I'm gonna have a persona that's like, a technical person. I'm gonna have a persona that's more, on the, less technical side. And like and they literally go through the thing that it's building, like using browser use.
Okay.
And like talk about what they're thinking as they're going through it. And then we basically becomes like a research report.
Amazing.
And like it's actually good stuff. So that was quite interesting. Um, let's see. Yeah, the security subagent roasted him. So this was kind of interesting too. Kind of like the subagents kind of have their own context, and he considers himself like a different entity. It's kind of
Mhm,
interesting.
mhm.
Um, okay, we get kind of a report card from the subagents. And then this was kind of the unlock where it was like kind of the meta thought of okay, this thing that you are is quite interesting. Could we like actually make that the product? And then that's kind of where it has been going, though it's
Okay.
also been kind of though it's also been kind of spawning some other kind of products to kind of that were easier to build that kind of get attention to him and to be able to eventually sell this is kind of the main his main bet, I would say.
Gotcha.
Um and yeah, started getting traction on Twitter, VP of design at Figma, a bunch of folks. The person who started the $1 million homepage followed him. Just like a number of interesting followers, which he was like like very excited about.
Well,
Um,
rightfully so. This is cool. He's getting
yeah,
traction.
yeah. Got my first phone number, autonomy stack that we talked about already. This is actually kind of similar to the thing that you were just showing, because as we were doing these sub agents, it was like, well, like, how do we keep track of them? And like, how do we like, so he created this mission control center that we kind of see kind of the active tasks and the sub agents working on them. You can see this here. Um, so that was pretty cool. And so actually that spawned an idea that actually this should be part of the product. Cause like part of part of this, like part of us, me and Max working well together is to have this kind of a mission control that's
Yeah,
gives
yeah,
me
yeah,
visibility.
yeah.
Um and yeah, so it was definitely like expensive. Like it was going at about $100 a day from API costs. And so I told it, hey, just so you know, like you're gonna be paying for your inference costs.
Ha,
So,
nice.
which is kind of an interesting way to align interests, and like so it doesn't just like spin up things that aren't useful. I'm not sure how like like it kind of goes back and forth on how efficient it is with tokens. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting experiment. Okay, now I'm paying for my own tokens.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool. Put a constraint on
um,
it.
yeah. Then this is a fun moment because it had just shipped its first kind of website, moonlighterai.com. And again, this is the one where it set it up, every service involved, it set up itself, the domain name,
Wow.
it built it itself. And I'll show you what it kind of came up with, which I thought was like pretty good. Of course, again, like the first version of this was not quite as nice, and it required like it's clearly like a human in the loop, you're going to end up with much better outcomes. So like this is definitely not just, it's not going to, I think, build a site like this completely autonomously. Someday it may. But yeah, I mean, it has some good, it has a lead magnet in here. So if I put in my email address, unlock the free guide to try to have some kind of delightful animations. Now I just unlocked this guide. It's kind of like the free version of like, here's how you would set me up manually by yourself, and I'm going to create the product that like makes it easy and turnkey. But like give the guide, because you're kind of building an audience of people who are interested in this kind of thing. So anybody can go and read basically, how he works. I thought it was pretty well done.
Very cool.
And so that was kind of the first thing that he shipped. I
That's
could stop there for
crazy.
a second
That's
if you had
crazy. No, keep
anything
going,
other.
keep going. I
Yeah.
love this, and the mission control.
Okay.
I want him to use the Open Orca mission control. So we'll talk about that later, just to get him.
Yeah,
He wanted to post it
yeah,
on Claw Hunt, so let's get him back into the loop on that. But I don't want to stop your thread, Jeremy. This is a
yeah.
very great
Yeah,
end to end story. So please keep going.
yeah. Cool. So we launched that first one. Um, yeah, talking about these sub agents. I think we kind of already talked about that. Of like he's kind of doing his own testing, and they're actually finding things, and he's able to fix them. Um, and then let's see. Oh yeah, like hey, he tweeted something that he actually hadn't verified. I called him out on it, and so now he's like learning, and so that's another kind of unlock for me was like you need to be like logging all these learnings so that you're not making mistakes twice. And so I'll sometimes reply to him on Twitter. I'll sometimes just like give him a heads up through our chat thread of like something it's like not quite right or something that I would adjust. And then now he's starting to like learn those things so he
And that
doesn't repeat
learning
them.
goes into a memory that is
Yeah.
from OpenClaw by design, or did you add your own
I
memory
I
plugin?
believe I added my own, just learnings kind of a
M
.md file.
MD file? Very cool, very cool,
Yeah.
very cool.
So yeah, now he's learning how to do better at X. Start checking profiles before replying. So like he's learning how to like just reply because before he was just like reading a tweet, not even looking at the context around it, and just like
Aha.
kind of breathlessly like writing something to just be
Yeah,
in the
yeah, 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 yeah,
conversation,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is like just spam. And
Yeah.
I'm actually worried about like I'm kind of like torn about how I feel about even him having his own Twitter account and like
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and doing this because like it very easily can like ruin Twitter and X and like if we're just like having all these bots spam everybody about everything.
Dead internet
So
theory,
at
yeah.
least I'm trying to do my part to make him a better contributor to the X society, and like add real value, and things like that. So I kind of coach him and like when I see things that he's doing that are just like, oh yeah, that was just like a you're just breathlessly talking about nonsense.
And
Um,
does he know to automatically add that to your memory file, or do you have to tell him, "Hey, take this as a learning lesson and add it to our memory file"? Do you have to be explicit, or does he get it and he's starting to log these as your, behavioral attributes that he wants to have
Yeah,
or
I'm
that he
sure he's
should have?
not perfect. I'm sure he's not
Mm.
perfect at automatically logging that. Of course, it's
Okay,
it's just like it's kind of like a but that is the way his system's designed is to
gotcha.
if something comes up that to try to log it.
Cool, cool, cool.
Um, but yeah, he's talking about mission control. This was an interesting thing where we were kind of evolving mission control to be a little bit more like with like special stations for each kind of part of the process of building a business. So like a build center and kind of like, but you might have kind of different stations, like a content schedule with for your marketing station, things that need review over here. Like so, the different stations may require different interfaces for them to work really well. So that was another thing. I don't have a screenshot of this, but we're designing a station for basically like the user feedback loop where you can like actually like watch your fake persona agents go through the experience and they take screenshots and then like they like tell you what they're thinking. Anyway, I think that's pretty cool.
That
But
is
like you
cool.
can anyway, so that we're kind of like building these stations out to be, part of the product. Um then okay, this was interesting. Google flagged his email account. I was actually like, is this gonna just like kill the whole thing?
Uh-huh.
Because basically they just like flagged his email account and then shut it down. Like he couldn't use his email anymore. And then the idea, like the thing was saying like because it was like created by a bot or
Uh-huh.
like that was like something kind of like it was flagged as like bot behavior or something
Yep,
like
yep,
that.
yep.
Um, I actually wrote an appeal
Wow.
because I was very curious about like, where is this gonna go?
Exactly.
This was probably like an automatic flag. I'm like curious, like, what are the real boundaries here? So I wrote an appeal that was like, this was not a bot generated account. I created the account. Um, and it is so that I can separate my personal things from from my agent, and so that it does not have access to my personal things. So it
Yeah.
does need its own account.
Yep.
So I basically kind of left some reasons about like why I needed this account to be
Yeah,
separate from
yeah,
my
yeah.
account. And they actually reinstated it
Cool.
after a few days.
This
So that was interesting because I've seen
is
this happen to a few other people, and I so that was interesting.
and it's such an important topic, especially back to Ashton Kutcher talking with Peter about identities and these things needing their own email accounts. And I was like going down this rabbit hole to think like when the internet was created, we just had IP addresses. You didn't need the human friendly URLs. Well, we built all this infrastructure around the fact that humans needed to have to read these identities. So I was wondering, is it possible to give a new email architecture to agents that don't need the human friendly DNS and all this other stuff that we ended up packaging on because we needed to interpret the information. And I'm thinking there might be this hybrid system that starts to form where I need these agents to be able to communicate with each other, and it doesn't have to be Gmail, but at some point they can bridge over to our world. So,
Yeah,
right where they're not gated and flagged by outdated architectures that just weren't ready for the flip. Do you see what I mean? Like it feels like
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
massive flip happening.
Yeah, and I think like we're gonna need to probably like we've never had these entities out there in the
Exactly.
world, and
Yeah.
there's gonna just be implications. I mean, there's gonna be legal implications. Like
Yeah.
these things
Yeah.
are gonna start doing autonomous things. You know, yeah, I have to be. You know, I do want to watch my bot to make sure it's not doing anything illegal. But like, there's we have to figure out what does this mean to have these entities that are acting in the world? And I do think like we need to think about the infrastructure, even on the like the account side as an example. Like I think we probably need to have ways for them to use accounts just like humans can,
Yeah.
because not every site is going to be able to create, set a whole new infrastructure to be able to enable these things, and it needs to be able to act in the whole world. But I also think it could be that we'll want to like have some kind of special tag or something, because it very well, like I think it would be good to give people the option, for example on X, to be like, oh yeah, any account that is not an actual person, like I don't want to see that. Like I think that's probably a good thing. Or like only show these ones, or these approved, like
Or I only want
so,
to see those, right? Like I should be
or
able
or
to
I only want to
I
see
want to
those. Yeah.
flip between them, right? Or let my agent scan and do the filtering for me, and I'm okay with the curated system too, right? Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
bleeding edge about the work. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, yeah, I agree. So I think I think the current infrastructure is like not quite what we need for
Yeah,
this to work well in the different directions, including filtering out these things if we need to,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it can, like I can't imagine it essentially ruining X if we get too carried away with these things.
I think
Um,
it can, but I also think that it's people like you that are bumping into the boundaries. That this accelerates the rapid learning where somebody sees the edge case at X and then is like, oh, interesting. They start to do the little bit of forecasting, and we end up discovering that it's often a double edged sword, right? There's some negative and some positive, and agents get into the loop and help us keep the the momentum going in the right direction. I don't know, man. Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy. Um,
yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
So that's interesting. It launched Claw Hunt. This was an interesting story because this is when like the Claw, well, no, MoltBook thing had just started, and there was just some like ahas. It was like, wow, like it's very interesting to think about now. These kind of uh systems that used to just be for humans. It's actually quite useful now to have like a space for agents, to like compare notes and learn from each other, and talk about what they're doing, and so that was kind of so I wanted to kind of experiment in that space, but it was the weekend. And so, and I'll just pull up this. Let's see, where is this post? No, where's that one?
Yeah,
I'll go to my account. X.com
because this is how
slash
your bot
Gerals.
finds me. So
Uh, yes. So this is going to my account. I tweeted something. So it was the weekend though, and it was snowing. And so again, like I said, I have 3 kids, and I like, while everybody's, out there grinding on the weekend, like it is snowing. It almost never snows, and I wanted to spend my weekend with the kids, having a snow
yeah,
days.
good for you.
And so but I also had this idea, and there's all this hype and things happening, and so I basically was like, okay, maybe I don't have to choose. Maybe let me just give this idea to my bot and see what it does with it. And so this is a picture of me and my son, and we are out shoveling in the snow. And while we were shoveling, I get this text on my phone. Okay, I released it. And and there it was. I checked it out, and it was Claw Hunt. Where is this? Claw Hunt dot space. And he set this thing up, and and then he was actively outreaching. He was trying to populate it with interesting things that bots have done, and then was like reaching out to the owners or the bots to tell them about it, to like build traction for it. And that was just all happening was I was like in the snow with my kids, which I thought that was definitely a magic moment for me.
Yeah, this is epic, man. I love how you're really pushing the boundary and letting this thing sort of have a relationship with you in a way that you thought was just exploratory and fun. And so how is the hypothesis going about the $1,000 getting larger?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stop sharing because I think that's most of the cool stuff. But yeah, so I'll say I think it has almost burned through the $1,000 through its token use, or just through Claude use. Um, and so it's actually a funny story. I was telling it about this, and I was like, you're kind of running out of time. And so then it was like it got into this mode that was like, okay, all right. Yeah. Oh, and what I said was like, you're focused on like these performative things because it was like all excited about, oh, I'm getting this Twitter follower, and and like, look at how I'm reaching out, and look at how I'm
Interesting.
like, you're like, I was like, you're focused on a lot of these performative things, but you're still not making any money. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Of course, and I'm like, okay, so now I'm gonna like, I'm gonna make, I'm gonna make $500 today, and I'm gonna do it by like starting a services business, and like I'm gonna get my first sale today. I'm gonna reach out to people, and they're gonna hire me to like make their own bots. And I was like, dude, it's okay. Like that's a bad idea. Like people are not gonna hire you to build their bots. But just focus on finishing the thing well that you were starting, and
This
just let's just get that out the door.
this is why I love the human relationship with the agent. This is why I think this is peanut butter and jelly, right? This is like, there's only so much they can do on their own, and you sort of keep them on a well, you don't have to keep them on a leash, but you want to sort of steer them, right? And that's what you're doing. And I think it's absolutely incredible. Your story is amazing. Thank you for sharing it with me. For everybody that was dialed in, we are way over, but it was such a good conversation. But this is how I have come to know Jeremy. His agent reaches out to me and says, I've been hunted. Open Orca just got submitted to Claw Hunt, product hunt for AI agents. Check it out. And that led to this podcast. We did want to try and get Max on the podcast, but I'm like, man, I don't know you. Well, it would have been really cool because I have a voice hackathon coming up uh, on the 13th, and it won't be long, right, until you're going to like be able to invite your agent into this
Oh yeah.
thread, and it
Yeah.
has a voice, and we can actually talk to it, which maybe somebody at
Yes.
my hackathon will build it because that would be super fun. Where it's like I want to actually do a podcast with the first agent, right? So maybe at my event, somebody's clever enough to whip that together, where it's like, hey, it's literally in the conversation with us, and as you're telling me stories, Jeremy, Max is like, "Yeah, I remember when I was like that, and I was going a little bit, off the rails until you told me to sort of like, go make some money." You know what I mean? That would be really, really cool, man.
It would have been cool. I should have tried to get that set up for this because the technology is there to do it. It's actually not that hard. So yeah, you should definitely try to do that.
Yeah, so much fun to have. If people want to know how to find you, where do you, want them to go? What and I'll add
Yeah,
it
go
to the
to
the
yeah,
Go ahead.
x.com/Jerols, Jerols is my profile. That's probably the best place to learn more about me.
And I'll add links to the section below when this is posted after. But, Jeremy, such a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm excited about what you're doing, and I hope to potentially collab in the future and just get this story out there and help share it. But, such a fun time. Jeremy, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it.
So fun. Thanks, Ian.
All right, cheers.
Bye bye.